In today's Leeds News Player Award nominations, Premier League set to decide on PSR alternative, international call-ups, Joe Rodon has a point to prove, Dan James injury verdict and under-21s in action. Morning folks, welcome back to the Leeds View. Friday morning, the 3rd of October with your Leeds United news. Not a huge amount of stuff to get stuck into, but some interesting updates on the PSR situation and the alternative that will be voted on coming up in the AGM. We'll give you more detail on the situation around that. Also, if you're looking for the Elland Road Architect updates that have been floating around today, we covered it on Wednesday's news. You'll see the graphic on the channel if you want to check that out. And also, question of the day down below, just see it there. If you want to just comment down below, who's been your standout player for Leeds United so far this season in the first 6 games? Would love to know everyone's thoughts on that as we get ready to do a bit of content on this during the international break. We will still be around during the international break. Don't worry, there'll be news every day. We'll keep up to date on the players' international duty as well. But we'll crack on today with the news, and we'll start with the end of month player award nominations. And Leeds have got quite a few up for awards. It's a good week for Leeds United goalkeepers at the end, as the end of the month and the weekly awards are being announced. Karl Darlow has been shortlisted for the Premier League's Coca-Cola Save of the Month. The nomination is for his save against Kevin's shot in the game against Fulham, where he tipped onto the crossbar before the corner was then taken and went in off Gabby Goodmanson's head. But a fantastic save nonetheless. He is also joined by Leeds United's under-21 on-loan goalkeeper at Scunthorpe, Rory Mahady, whose debut for the Irons saw him pick up the National League Team of the Week position for goalkeeper, which is an excellent confidence booster for Mahady at his new club. Another under-21 to give a shout out to as well as Ollie Pickles. He's had a hell of a month so far this month. Signs his first pro deal, captains the under-21s, and has now been awarded Leeds United's under-21 Player of the Month for September. Not bad for a month in which he just turned 17 years of age. Definitely a player for everyone to keep an eye on there. Anton Stach has also been nominated for his Goal of the Month award for the free kick against Wolverhampton Wanderers. So plenty of early season award nominations for this Leeds United group, and we'll see how they get on. We'll give you the updates on them when the actual final are all announced in the next week or so. Let's move on and talk about the updates to the PSR situation. This is a chunky one. I'll be looking down at my notes because there's lots of detail in this that I want to make sure I get as accurate as possible on this. So we'll start off with this, and we've covered the failed meeting last week that the Premier League had around making changes to the PSR model and trying to change it more towards UEFA's model, which they're calling the squad cost rules model. That meeting ended without a verdict, and it has now been kicked down the road. The Premier League boss is saying they would revisit this, and there is an alternative needed due to an awful lot of protests from the clubs in the Premier League around the unfairness and uneven playing field that PSR has created. New detail today from the BBC says that changes are coming and that the plan is to discuss this in November. The Premier League has confirmed that the current profit and sustainability rules will stay in place for next season at this point, but changes are being discussed. This means that clubs will still be restricted to the maximum loss of 105 million over a rolling 3-year period. Go over that and you risk getting a points deduction. Now, it doesn't apply to the promoted clubs. We are in a lesser loss position on that. I think ours is about 65, 66 million this season. Someone will correct me in the chat on that. Thanks very much. But there is hope of a change to a new model and something more modern and something a little bit more flexible, and there is hope that that has been solved. According to the BBC, 2 major factors are holding up the existing rules from being changed. The first one is Manchester City, who have launched a legal challenge against the Football League's rules on associated party transactions, basically how clubs report their commercial income from companies linked to their own. Secondly, there's uncertainty around the incoming independent football regulator, which could shake up the system completely. So, instead of rolling out the new framework, the Premier League are sticking to the PSR rules for now, but behind the scenes they are trialling 2 new ideas, and we covered these in the piece last week. The first one is the squad cost model, which is the one that failed to get a verdict on the day. The second one is called the top to bottom anchoring, which basically means the spending of the top sides would be linked to the revenue ability of the bottom sides in the league to try and level out the playing field, which means if you're not bringing in huge amount of money down the bottom of the Premier League, clubs at the top can only spend in and around what you can spend as well, which is a strange one if you've got very wealthy owners, but that's designed to level the playing field a little bit. The BBC report today notes that these rules won't be voted on until the Premier League's AGM in June. Even if they are approved, there will be a transitional period in place before they kick in fully. For clubs like Leeds that have felt the financial pinch of mismanagement in the past, these rules are a little bit of a reminder to spend wisely while you can and hope that these new changes will come in and will work in your favour. Leeds have got wealthy owners who can't spend the money that they want to spend because of PSR. If the new anchoring model was to come in, that would link Leeds to someone like Burnley. And again, that wouldn't probably help Leeds in that situation either, but it would level the playing field out. It's going to be an interesting one. I can't see Manchester City voting in favour of that one. They want to just outspend everybody. They don't care about the rules in the league. And I think the sooner the 115 cases against Manchester City are resolved and we see what happens with them, kick them out of the league. I think everybody would be happy with that. They're just constantly suing the Premier League and stopping the league from making good progress that would even out the playing field for all clubs. But yeah, it is what it is right now. Let's move on, talk about some international call-ups. And during the last international break, Leeds kind of got off the hook a little bit with only a handful of players called up for international duty, but this time around a few more have been called up by their national sides. First one up is Gabby Gudmundsson. He's been called up for Sweden for the World Cup qualifiers against Kosovo and Switzerland. Jakub Bial has been called up by Slovenia for their games also against Kosovo and Slovenia, as Sweden and Slovenia both play in the same group. Brendan Aronson has been recalled to the US MNT squad for their friendlies against Ecuador and Australia. No qualifiers for them as they're the host nation. Ao Tanaka has been called up by Japan for their games against Paraguay and Brazil. Charlie Crew on the Nominees side of things has been called up for the Welsh under-21 squad, and Rory Mahady out on loan at Scunthorpe, but he has been called up by the Scottish under-21 squad, and we'll cover all of their progresses during the international break. But we'll move on and we'll talk about Joe Rodon. And yesterday in Daniel Farke's press conference, he wouldn't be drawn on whether Joe Rodon had a point to prove against Tottenham Hotspur or not, just simply saying if the player said it, he won't argue with what the player had to say. But Rodon has spoken about it during a sit down with Isaac Johnson from Leeds Live. Rodon has been quietly going about his business, but his performances this season have been excellent for Leeds United, showing that he absolutely belongs in the Premier League, capped off with his first Premier League goal of his career as well. Rodon is very focused on the Leeds United task and is doing what he can to achieve the club's goals of staying in the Premier League this season. And on the topic, he said the following: "You know, in the back of my mind, I also have a point to prove. I didn't play much, of course, when I was at Tottenham. I didn't get really that much of an opportunity that every player wants. And I feel like this has been a long time coming, but not just for me, but for other players as well. Consistency is key. I will always give everything I have individually and collectively for this team and the club. And Leeds for me is a huge club, and we all need to understand we're here to do a role. This club belongs where we are now." A lovely rally cry from Joe Rodon, and he's been such an important part of this Leeds United side's DNA over the last couple of years. His passion, his drive, his leadership, what he brings to the team, very much a do as I do kind of player. So I'm delighted that he's finally got a chance to show that he not only can cut it in the Premier League, but he has seamlessly thrived in the Premier League so far this season, and he has looked comfortable and capable in all the matches he's played so far this season, and long may that continue for Joe Rodon. Not talked about a little enough this season. He needs to be talked about a little bit more. He's just cracked on with his job and been really, really good for Leeds. So well done, Joe Rodon. Let's move on. And a quick update on Dan James and his injuries. We got some updates yesterday. It's a short update on this one for those who've missed it. We were told that the injury wasn't overly significant and he wouldn't be absent for a significant amount of time. But yesterday in the press conference, Daniel Farke confirmed that Dan James has rolled his ankle, but then followed it up by saying he will be absent for 4 to 6 weeks, which is significant enough and missing enough amount of time. It also suggests that there's possibly ligament damage there, as much strains on the ligaments more than anything else, but he will be out for 4 to 6 weeks, which means that James will be out of action until after the November international break. But Daniel Farke is hopeful that he can get him back just before it. I personally would like to see him not come back before that one. Avoid going international duty with Wales in November so he can stay fresh, get up to speed, be ready for the games coming up in December, which are very important for Leeds in a very tough run of games this December. On a quick update, Willie Gnonto is expected to be back in team training next week. He hasn't trained, the calf issue is still a problem, but he is expected to be back in team training next week and should be back in the squad just after the international break. Then a really quick update on the under-21s, and if all goes according to plan, I'll get this video out in time and we will be doing a watch along over on bigup.com for the under-21s game this afternoon. The Leeds under-21s will kick off against West Brom in their EPL 2 match today away from home. The game is a 1 PM kickoff. We are trying to cover it over on Big Up again, assuming all this gets edited and out in the same time. But you can go over to bigup.com, look for the Leeds View, and you'll see the tab there for that. And the match is taking place at West Brom's Fit Life Foods Performance Centre, their training ground. It's also been shown on LUTV if you want to watch it there as well. And it's a good opportunity to see how they get on again. No Harry Gray in the squad this time. He has a hip flexor issue, so he's likely to be out of the side. We'll see how they get on without Rory Mahadi and Harry Gray in this game. Two players have been very important for them so far this season, very good for them. And we'll see where we are. That'll be it for me today and for this week, folks. We have the match review last night, match preview, last night. You can check that out on the channel if you want to. Just stats, data, team news, and a bit of information around that. We will have a watch along over on bigup.com for tomorrow early morning kickoff. Tomorrow's 11. We will have a watch along over on bigup.com tomorrow for the watch along for the Spurs game as well. You can check that out if you want to join us for that. Outside of that, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. Fingers crossed for 3 points tomorrow. And I'll talk to you later on. See ya. Bye.